We have to be very, very careful and cautious every step of the way in reopening the economy because we don't want to come back to where we are.
Tonight, Ottawa on getting back to normal as provinces begin to unveil their plans to reopen.
We're gonna take what comes at us and make sure that we persevere through it.
Flooding fears in northern Alberta put some communities in a second state of emergency.
So we basically created a few prototypes and made sure that we were able to produce these with our printers. And from then on, basically, we said, okay, we can do it.
And a Mi'kmaq-run nonprofit uses 3D printers to make pandemic supplies. Good evening. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Melissa Ridgen. What is the plan? That's the question being asked about when things can get back to some semblance of normal. Provinces like Saskatchewan and Ontario have released steps to reopen. As Todd Lamourand reports, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau talks about cooperating on guidelines while still preaching caution.
Prime Minister Trudeau was asked if he has federal guidelines that all provinces will use to reopen their economies. He said that there has been collaboration between all premiers, but Ottawa will not dictate any steps.
There will be guidelines that we agree to, all of us, the 13 premiers and the Prime Minister, all of our different orders of government, to inform ourselves going forward. It is something that is worked together to give Canadians a frame within which they can see the actions being taken in their particular regions.
The cabinet briefing reiterated that going back to normal won't happen quickly, because scientists don't know if having COVID-19 grants immunity.
We know that people who are infected with COVID-19 will develop some kind of antibody response. And that will probably provide some level of protection. We just don't know what level of protection, how strong that protection is, and how long it will last.
And that's why the Prime Minister urged caution.
We have to be very, very careful and cautious every step of the way in reopening the economy because we don't want to come back to where we are. And I have confidence that every province is taking very seriously this responsibility to be careful because nobody wants to have gone through all this for nothing.
Trudeau again said that things won't be normal until a vaccine is developed.
Or a system of treatments that are equivalent to a vaccine where we can be sure that people will not, will not have COVID-19 be as lethal as it is now. We are going to have to be very careful.
On the weekend, Mark Miller announced more assistance for Indigenous post-secondary students and that funding will be on the way for 94 programs aimed at urban populations. Todd Lamourand, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Flooding has forced hundreds from their homes across northern Alberta. Some communities have declared a state of emergency on top of the one in place for the pandemic. Tamara Pimentel reports.
I'm standing along the Peace River in northern Alberta where water levels are rising with the spring breakup, and it's putting a lot of communities at risk. This river flows through Fort Vermilion, a hamlet surrounded by Indigenous communities, and that declared a state of emergency and a mandatory evacuation. The ice jam flooding has also caused a water supply shortage in the Lacrete area. And further east in Fort McMurray, high water levels from the Athabasca and Clearwater rivers is forcing nearly 200 people from their homes. Flooding in these areas is an annual occurrence, but this year it comes during the COVID-19 pandemic. Wood Buffalo Mayor Don Scott says the region is prepared.
But if there's any place that can manage an emergency, it's our region. You know, the people here are resilient and extremely tough. They look out after one another. So we're gonna take what comes at us and make sure that we persevere through it.
Now, evacuees are ordered to continue following regulations around COVID-19 to limit the spread of the virus while they travel away from their homes to local hotels. Tamara Pimentel, APTN National News, Peace River.
Today, Ontario laid out its roadmap for reopening, something Premier Doug Ford says won't happen until there's a consistent decrease in the number of COVID-19 cases. Ontario is still reporting over 400 new cases a day. Once numbers are down, the province will reopen in 3 stages, he says. Ford said that certain workplaces and parks are going to be first on that list. In Saskatchewan, the Premier wants to start reopening the province for business in phases starting as early as next week, but the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations Chief Bobby Cameron thinks it's too soon. Cameron says there's still plenty of active COVID-19 cases up north in La Loche, English River, and Clearwater-Dene First Nations. He says that there is a chance that the virus can still spread to other First Nations and towns. The chief recommends continuing the self-isolating, staying home, and controlling who comes and who goes into the communities.
My recommendation would have been to the provincial government, if there is 0 cases in 2 weeks, and if there are more recoveries in that same 2 weeks, then it's safe to say, let's start looking at options on when, how we can reopen the economy.
We want to hear what you think about the provincial reopening plans. Here's how you can continue the conversation. You can send your emails to news@aptn.ca. You can find us online at aptnnews.ca and on youtube.com/aptnnews. You can also follow APTN News on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for more Indigenous news. The head of the World Health Organization warned today the COVID-19 pandemic is far from over and expressed concern about how the disruption of normal health services is impacting people, especially children.
Although COVID-19 is taking a heavy toll, WHO is deeply concerned about the impact the pandemic will have on other health services, especially for children. Children may be at relatively low risk from severe disease and death from COVID-19, but can be at high risk from other diseases that can be prevented with vaccines.
The Director General added shortages of vaccines against other diseases were being reported in 21 countries as a result of border restrictions linked to the pandemic. Well, an Australian app designed to accelerate coronavirus contact tracing has been downloaded by more than 1 million people in that country. Within 12 hours of the COVID Safe app being made available to the public, it had been downloaded by 1.1 million people. The app allows those who contracted the virus to upload their data to people that they may have come into contact with. The Australian government says at least 40% of the population needs to use the app for it to be effective. Saying it has effectively eliminated COVID-19, New Zealand has already begun lifting its strict lockdown, but the country's prime minister says it will be a while before life returns to normal.
We must make sure that we do not let the virus run away on us again and cause a new wave of cases and deaths.
We need to take a break, but still ahead, a caravan in support of setting some prisoners free from jail during the pandemic. Here's a look at tomorrow's weather for the east and central parts of the country first. Starting off on the east coast, we've got 9 with a mix of sun and cloud for Fredericton, 2 a mix of sun and cloud for St. John's. Happy Valley Goose Bay, sunshine and 9 degrees. Kuujjuaq, 5 and sunny. Chibougamau, 8 and sunshine. Val-d'Or, 12 with sunny skies. Ottawa, sunshine and 13. Peterborough, 10 with a mix of sun and cloud. Kapuas, Casing and Timmins, sunshine and 13. Sulikote, 12 but cloudy. The Pas will be sunny and 7, -7 and sunshine for Churchill. Winnipeg, 19 and some rain. 13 for Dauphin and Brandon, rain there too. 16s for Regina and Swift Current. 17 and sunshine for Saskatoon. 12 and rain in La Ronge, 16 and sunny for Meadow Lake, and 9 with a mix of sun and cloud for Uranium City. Welcome back. In separate incidents Friday night, 2 women were arrested in Nain, Labrador, and charged with impaired driving on a snowmobile. The RCMP says during one of the arrests, a 52-year-old woman spat and coughed in an officer's face and claimed that she has COVID-19. That person has been charged with assaulting a police officer. Both women have received driver's license suspensions and have been released from custody to attend court at a later date. Over the weekend, prisoner advocates and allies hopped into their vehicles to take part in a Free Them All caravan, making noisy drive-bys of jails and prisons in several cities across Canada to demand justice for detainees. An Ottawa-based group drove past the Ottawa Carleton Detention Centre while honking their horns to demand early release for prisoners at risk of contracting COVID-19. Similar actions took place in Montreal, Halifax, Toronto, and Vancouver. Organizers say the authorities are, quote, stuck in the mud in their handling of this pandemic. Updated numbers from Correctional Services Canada shows that 244 inmates in federal prisons have tested positive for COVID-19, but by including positive cases among employees, that number spikes to nearly 450. A community drive for a food drive for a community hit by COVID-19 turned chaotic over the weekend when a group of community members say that they were stopped from trying to deliver essential food services to Gull Bay First Nation in Ontario. Willow Fiddler has more.
Community members from Gull Bay say their leadership neglected on-reserve band members after several cases of COVID-19 came back positive. So they got together and raised more than $3,000 in food and essential supplies.
We're able to get fresh produce, carrots, onions, potatoes, for each home.
But this is what was captured on video, reportedly when they tried to deliver the goods on Saturday. Kanina Nawagijik says she wanted to help when she heard it would be days before Gull Bay would get fresh food and essentials.
Well, kids are starving. They're hungry. My kids don't go without food. They're miserable. Like if I'm short milk or something, they need their cereal. They need their fresh essentials, and they don't have that there.
Gull Bay is about 180 kilometers north of Thunder Bay and has 300 to 400 members living on reserve. The local community store has been closed since its owner was medevaced to Thunder Bay. He later tested positive for COVID-19. Sharon Tyens lives in Gull Bay.
No, he's the only store. He was the only store that had groceries. He had everything. He brought in cleaning supplies. He brought in baby stuff. He brought in food. He brought in meat.
So Nawagijik and others in Thunder Bay drove 76 food hampers, 2.5 hours to Gull Bay. Chief Wilfred King says it was a good idea at first. An arrangement was made to transfer the food hampers outside the community checkpoint, but things didn't go as planned.
And you had a whole group of members, former councillors, that came up to the gate and wanted to just rush the gate, and they were actually stopped and said no, they weren't allowed to do that. So
King says he's not aware of any community members affected by the store closure.
It's not like they sell groceries. It's a small convenience store where they sell, your bread, milk, eggs, emergency supplies, right? If you run out of eggs, you go there. It's not a full-scale grocery store. So I don't know. I don't know who shops there. There are grocery stores in Thunder Bay or Armstrong where people buy probably the majority of their food.
The food hampers eventually made it past the checkpoint and were delivered to households. King says they've partnered with a food group in Thunder Bay to get more food and essentials into the community. There are now 8 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Gull Bay. Willow Fiddler, APTN National News, Thunder Bay.
We want to hear what you think about this or any other story that you see tonight. Here's how you can continue that conversation. You can send your emails to news@aptn.ca. You can find us online at aptnnews.ca, and we're on youtube.com/aptn news. You can also follow APTN News on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for more Indigenous news. The future of the Northwest Territories' largest private industry is looking grim. Dominion Diamonds filed for creditor protection. The company runs the Acadie Diamond Mine, the largest in the territory. They are also a 40% partner in the neighboring Diavik mine. Dominion stated that COVID-19 restrictions are making it impossible to get diamonds to sorting facilities and markets. The company, which owes almost $800 million, shut down their Acadie mine in March for safety reasons, but hopes to reopen once the pandemic is over. More than 1,000 jobs are attached to the fate of that mine. Territorial leaders and businesses who are indirectly tied to Dominion say that they are shocked by the news.
We know the financial scenario of Dominion is very different than for Rio Tinto and De Beers. But did we know it was coming ahead of time? No, absolutely not. And I've been trying to go through all of the documentation, because we do have some touch points into all the mines, and our labor through Procon joint venture. We have equipment and labor that way. I was a little surprised that they declared the CCAA after they were in the care and maintenance.
It's time for us to take another break, but when we come back, a Mi'kmaq company using 3D technology to make pandemic supplies, and here's the rest of tomorrow's weather. Off to northern Alberta, we've got 15 in sunshine for High Level in Peace River, 17 in rain for Fort McMurray. 18 in sunshine for Edmonton, Lethbridge, and Medicine Hat, 16 in sunny for Calgary. 11 in rain for Campbell River, 9 in rain in Quesnel. Fort Nelson, 16 and sunny skies. Smithers, 9 and rain. 10 in sunshine for Beaver Creek, 7s for Mayo and Dawson City. 11 in rain in Wrigley, 7 and some snow in Wattie. Fort McPherson, -3 and snow. Palatec, -5 and snow. Cambridge Bay, clear and -8 degrees. -11 and sunshine for Repulse Bay. Clyde River, -10 and sunny. Igloolik, -9 and cloud. Tallyoak, -11 and snow. Welcome back. Stronger Together, Tous Ensemble was an opportunity to say thanks. It was a fundraiser and an evening of solid entertainment.
To all of the people who are on the front lines against COVID-19, you're doing Canada proud.
And I hope we just never take for granted again some of the moments that we have for so many years in this rat race of life.
Well-known Canadians and musicians came out in full force last night for Stronger Together. The 90-minute broadcast featured performances from the likes of Shania Twain, Celine Dion, and many others. Viewers were urged to donate to Food Banks Canada. A Mi'kmaq-run nonprofit is using 3D technology to make medical supplies for healthcare workers during the COVID-19 pandemic. Angel Moore brings us this story.
These 3D printers are normally in classrooms across Nova Scotia, but now they are here in Halifax, printing personal protective equipment that may be in short supply for isolated communities fighting COVID-19. Philippa Picto is working with community health directors to make sure they have enough supplies.
But also to be prepared for if there is a case in one of our communities, that we have everything in place to be able to minimize the impact as much as we can.
The 3D printers are provided by Digital Mi'kmaq, a federally funded program of Alnuweg, which is a nonprofit organization that helps Indigenous businesses and entrepreneurs get their ideas off the ground. Digital Mi'kmaq promotes science and technology education for Indigenous students. Educational facilitator Sonia Jane is preparing the shields.
And these are the bands which are printed using the 3D printers, and this punch thing is attached here, and here you go.
Supplies will be shipped out to health centres and communities across Atlantic Canada. Each box contains gloves, 25 face shields, and 25 face masks. Chris Gugu is the Chief Operating Officer of Alnuweg. He said the printers can make just about anything.
We basically created a few prototypes and made sure that we were able to produce these with our printers. And from then on, basically, we said, okay, we can do it.
Gugu obtained a license from Health Canada to produce, purchase, and distribute the protective equipment. There are 25 printers that can make about 1,000 face shields per week. Holly Griffiths makes sure the printers keep operating.
As long as it takes, one more person that doesn't get sick, or one day closer that people can go back to work and support their families, as long as it takes, and for how much we can do,
They will keep providing personal protective equipment to health centres as long as needed. Angel Moore, APTN National News, Jabuktuk, Halifax.
Many people in the city of Regina and throughout Saskatchewan are in mourning for the loss of a local elder who devoted her life to others. Norma Jean Bird was known for her compassion and her willingness to help people who needed it most. CTV's Stephanie Davis has more on the legacy Norma Jean Bird leaves behind.
Norma Jean Bird was a prominent elder in Saskatchewan who spent most of her life helping and teaching others and sharing Indigenous traditions with people of all ages.
She was just that spark of ray and hope.
On Thursday, April 23rd, she passed away at 78 years old.
She always had a smile on her face, and the way she laughed, and she was just so accepting and loving and warm, and she just had a genuinely kind heart that, you could just feel love in her presence.
For more than 30 years, Bird worked with numerous organizations in Regina, creating a lasting impact.
She was held in high regard, not just for the Indigenous community, of course, but within the city of Regina itself.
She worked with the All-Nation Healing Through Arts program, the Rainbow Youth Centre, the YMCA, the First Nations University of Canada, and more.
Especially with Reconciliation Regina, she's one of the elders that helped us establish that and gave me personal guidance and support. And she was always there with a great smile on her face, always wanted to help.
Her work focused on advocating for others and incorporated medicine wheel teachings. She was also determined to help the environment for future generations. Her contributions didn't go unnoticed. She received a 125 Canada Medal from the Governor-General, a Women of Distinction Award from the YWCA, and a Crime Prevention Award from the City of Regina. But those who knew her say she didn't do it for the acknowledgement. In a statement, her family says she loved to teach and work with children, youth, mothers, and families, and promoted the importance of healthy living through traditional Indigenous ways. Norma Jean's bright smile and warm heart will truly be missed.
Everyone is going to miss her a lot, especially the Anta youth and everybody in the community that had the privilege of meeting her.
Because of current gathering restrictions, a memorial ceremony will be organized by her family at a later date. Stephanie Davis, CTV News, Regina.
A wonderful woman. She will be missed. Well, that is all the time that we have for your news tonight. You can catch up on anything that you might have missed recently by visiting our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Melissa Ridgen, and I'm going to leave you with something pretty special. For the first time in over 150 years, history is made with the birth of a bison at Waniskuin. She's part of a herd that's made up of bison from Grasslands National Park, as well as bison from the U.S. with ancestral ties to Yellowstone. Take a look and have a great night.